So, hi everyone. Welcome to the first TLC event of the spring semester. I'm Don Saucier. I'm the Faculty Associate Director of our Teaching and Learning Center. I'm so excited you're here for our teaching chat. So, a couple announcements before we get into the actual chat part of this. Number one, we have a professional development series that happens in real time over Zoom at noon on Wednesdays throughout the course of the academic semester. We also record these for asynchronous viewing. So, if you're watching us asynchronously, we're very glad that you found us. It'll be the same Zoom link all semester. But do be aware that you got to log into Zoom first. So I typically go into Zoom, I pretend like I'm scheduling a meeting, and then the link will work for me. If not, you're going to hit a little bit of resistance, and that's just what we got to do for cybersecurity. I apologize. We've got to do that. We have a professional development certificate available if you attend some events and do some reflections and post-event surveys. And my colleague Jeffrey just dropped that information into our chat. That information is also available on our webpage. If you want the professional development certificate, that's awesome. That means that you're interested in improving your own teaching excellence. But if you go further and try to improve the excellence of others, you might be a TLC fellow. And we have information for how you can do that as well. Now that if you're a GTA, a graduate student, a staff member, faculty member, you can get a TLC professional development certificate. To be a TLC fellow, we reserve that for staff and faculty. So please do check that out. If you have any questions, please reach out because we would love to talk to you about those. Those are things that we absolutely enjoy. We also have a Teams channel, which we call the TLC Hub, where we provide information about our events and all of those sorts of things. And if you attend an event, we'll automatically add you to that Teams channel. If you say, hey, I didn't want you to do that, just let us know. We'll take you back off. But that's one of the ways we get that information out. We have a Facebook presence if you want to check us out there. I realize not many people get on there, but we try all the ways that we can to get the information out to all of you. I like to provide a little foreshadow for what's coming up in coming weeks. Next week, we'll have the importance of connection in the age of AI by my colleague, Dr. Jennifer Smith in the Department of Psychological Sciences. This is based on a piece that she wrote for Faculty Focus. How many of you know what Faculty Focus is? Couple people raising. If you don't know what Faculty Focus is, what you should do in the background while you're listening is Google Faculty Focus, go there and sign up for a free subscription. And then what will happen on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, you will get awesome essays sent to your inbox about teaching. They max out at about 1,200 words, and they have practical tips for how we can be better, more effective, more engaging, and more fulfilled as teachers. So definitely do check those out. And a lot of K-State colleagues, myself included, have published there. Really, really cool stuff. So please do check that out. But Jennifer Smith's going to be talking about some of the stuff that she talked about in her Faculty Focus piece on connection in the age of AI. Today we'll be having a chat. We have these roughly once a month. And what that means is I'll have some questions and I'll be able to facilitate some things. And when I say I have questions, I actually have lots of questions because I had my first class of Principles of College Teaching yesterday, and they had questions that I'm going to answer tomorrow in class. But if we have time, I'm going to crowdsource some of those answers. But if y'all have questions, definitely this is the place to kind of do that. So the first thing I want to ask is, are we ready for the spring semester? My questions are not rhetorical, but I will answer my own question if no one else does. And that's not to let you off the hook. That's just so we don't have dead time while we're doing this. So how are we feeling about that spring semester? Are we ready? All right. So I'm seeing some people are like, absolutely, and they're putting their thumbs up. Other people are shaking their head vehemently no, and some people are a little bit more in the middle. I find for myself, I start to kind of build momentum and energy toward that semester, and the excite nerve, kind of that balance of excitement and anxiety, starts to switch toward excitement just as I'm about to walk into class. But before that, the anxiety is kind of hitting me. And like many of you, I'm spending a lot of time right now kind of tweaking those classes. I have my last first class of the semester later this afternoon. And right up to the time that I walk in, I'll be tweaking that first day plan and tweaking what I'm going to be talking to them about and all of those sorts of things. And then after the first class, we're good. After the first class, I find like, all right, now I know my plan. Now I know what's going to happen. I feel a whole lot better. So does anyone else out there have kind of wanted to share their process for kind of going through this anxiety, this apprehension, leading to excitement for their first classes?
So I'm just teaching a once a week orientation class, and I just did that this morning at 10:30. And I polled my students using Mentimeter, which I love Mentimeter. If you haven't used it, it's super easy to use, and I'll put the link in the chat. You can do a free subscription or a pro. The free one's great, and they've expanded the free stuff too. And they also have QR codes that you can download for students to use. So it's a little bit easier to use than it used to be. But I asked my students how they were feeling, and Don, like you, there, I think what they put in the anonymous poll that I did as a word cloud was kind of an excitement and nervous combination. And I was feeling that way myself for different reasons this time. Since I teach the arts and sciences orientation, it's something that others have created, which is always wonderful in some ways and a challenge in other ways to teach something that you didn't create yourself. But I'm curious, the dilemma that I had was there was a lot of material to get through on the first day, more than I usually try to cover. And I ended up doing what I usually do, which is focus on community building in the class. And we just didn't get to the material. And I find that happening a lot. And it's kind of stressful to do that in a once a week class because you don't have as much wiggle room. But I would love to know what you all do when you feel like, for whatever reason, one or the other, that there's some material you're supposed to get through, but you need to do that community building. I had thought about trying to combine the two, but on the first day, it's just a little different. I usually try to combine the two and have them engage with each other about the content. Um, but I just kind of I went with my gut and my experience, and I'd love to know what you all think on that first day balance.
So I'm very happy to share my thoughts, but I want to open it up to other people to share theirs first. So how do we deal with this kind of balancing that community building on that first day along with getting some content in?
One of the things that I like to do on the first day is have students like pull out the syllabus and have students interact with it as like a community building slash like getting through important content for first day. And so I really like one of the things that I've started doing, and maybe for your course, you wouldn't be able to do this since it's designed by others. But I have students, I ask students if they want to make modifications to the objectives. So I ask students to think about like, why are they taking this class? What are they hoping to get out of it? If it's a requirement, like, what do they hope they get out of it anyway? Like, okay, you have to be here. Like, what can you get out of this course that would be helpful for you? Or what can I modify about this course to make it better for you? And then I have them look over the objectives in the syllabus and comment on which objectives stand out most to them in terms of what do they think are going to be the most important objectives for them personally towards their goals. And so I ask students if they want to make modifications to the objectives, but even if you can't make modifications, I think just having them interact with the objectives and compare them to their own experiences would allow for that, like getting through some of the content while also developing some of that community building, and for yourself getting that important information of like, why are my students here? What do they want from this course? So that I can then make adjustments to my course accordingly so that they feel like the course serves them.
So something that I had, Melissa, and I know we've talked about teaching on the first day and those sorts of things, and I'm dropping some links and things like that into the chat with resources as well. But I see the first day as having two objectives: inform and inspire. All right, so I want to let them know what the course is about, what they can expect to learn, the awesome content that we're gonna have. But I think it's to inspire them to come back for the second day is really what that first day is about. I want them to have an understanding that this course is really for them. One of the things I tell my students on that first day is, I'm going to do my best to make this your favorite course this semester. And then I'm telling, you might not agree with everything I say, you might not understand everything I say. Please call me on that. But every single day, I'm going to do my best to make this the most valuable, best course that you've ever taken. And that's my commitment to you. Now, if what we're talking about is going to resonate with your goals, both personal and professional, then come back on that second day. If not, well, then you can make the decision that you need to make as an adult. But I would like to use my content to inspire them, right? So yesterday we're talking about the SLOs in my Principles of College Teaching class, and we're going through them. It's like, if you want to do these things, then this class is for you. Which of these things is most interesting to you? Which of these things are you most excited about? Which of these things are going to help you professionally? So what I'm doing is I'm actually using my content to create connection, not only with them and each other and with me, but also with the content of my course. So that's what I'm sort of trying to do. I do want to have something learned on that first day. But what that is doesn't have to be the first unit or the first chapter kind of in my course design, because I don't have more of that. Now, I do respect you said this is a once in a week class, so it's a little harder. You don't have like Tuesday to go into Thursday. You have Monday going to next Monday. I'm willing to live with that. Um, I think someone said it might have even been you, might have been Andy, but someone had previously said in one of these chats, connection before content. And I think really what you're doing is you're creating that connection on that first day. And I think that is not time wasted. I think that that time actually sets the stage for successful learning later.
I appreciate that. And Don, I was thinking that I think this, ever since I learned this from you, the goal of the first day is to have them be excited about the second day, no matter how much longer that is. And it's tricky, right? Because especially for this course, because the orientation course has different topics every week. And so today was about K-State being a land grant institution and history and traditions, and we don't really come back to that. So that content exciting them, we're kind of is just, we don't spend a ton of time. But I did pull in, I said we're going to come back to this next week, but the main goal of a land grant institution is that there's access to education for everyone and that everyone who wants to pursue higher education deserves to be here. So we're focusing on belonging and connection and all of that stuff. So I tied it in that way, and I thought, well, sometimes you throw 25 new ideas at people, they leave with just a bunch of rumble. And so my hope is that at least that part of it sinks in, so when we come back to it, it'll work. But yeah, it's tricky to do for once a week, especially when the content's different. But that gives me some ideas for next week.
The other thing that I try to do is realize that, there's in-class time, but there's other ways to share information and resource with our students, right? So I could see, having an assignment that says, you tell me how you've seen this manifest in your daily life. Tell me what you've seen in terms of K-State's marketing that makes this clear to students. Tell me the deficiencies that we have that we can actually make this message stronger. So, involve our students, in kind of some of that learning too. Not everything needs to be said by us. And again, it's something I've learned from all of you in the conversations that we've had over the many semesters working together. So how about the rest of you? How are you getting ready for the spring? Are there any kind of issues or obstacles that you're kind of dealing, any concerns you're having that you want to kind of process in this group?
I wanted to share something I've been doing successfully for a while now, but I'm thinking about it in a new way. I have an assignment this week for my students to email me with any questions or concerns they have about the class. Or if they don't have any questions or concerns about the class, then something they're excited about this semester related to our class, school, or something else. So it gives students a chance that if they don't want to share anything personal to me, they can invent a question about the course and I'll answer it. Or if they generally do have a question, they can ask it. And it breaks my purpose in doing it is to make sure especially in the fall when I'm working with a lot of freshmen, they know how to email me. Now, this semester I have some freshmen, but I'm teaching mostly, it's a 400 level classes. So those students should know how to email a professor, but sometimes they still don't want to. So it gives us a very low stakes way for them to connect to me and for us to connect one-on-one before there's a reason that they have to, before they have to because it's an assignment, but it's kind of like we've broken the seal. And so now they've done it one time. They know they can do it. They know that we can have these interactions, that it's going to be positive. And I'm sure for a lot of these students for whom that's like not a problem, they can advocate for themselves and ask a professor questions by email. This might not be a big thing, but I think for other students who really don't want to feel like a bother, I've already told them, no, this is how we're going to interact. They've already practiced and it feels good. And then it also gives me those data points of what are they concerned about at the beginning of the semester? Does it match their concerns at the end? So I write back right away to everybody's questions. But then if they share something about a concern that's going to develop later in the semester, like I'm really worried about how this project is going to happen, I will schedule an email for them right now where so I'm really worried about the project that we're doing in February. I will schedule an email to go to them the day that project is released, or I go over it in class. And right now I will say, how did it feel today when we went over in class? Or if they share something with me, like I'm really excited about, I'm on the Salina campus, we do a lot with pilots. I'm really excited about when I go and I test for this part of my pilot thing. I'm going to do this on this date. or I'm really excited about going to this football game or this event, or my grandparents are coming for spring break or whatever. I will write to that student right now this week while I'm not overwhelmed with little details and schedule something encouraging to go out to them. And students really respond well to this. It is a little bit faking being warm because like I'm not actually remembering what they're doing for spring break. I'm not actually remembering the day of their big game or whatever they're excited about. But it's important to me enough now to prioritize it now. And they don't know that I'm just scheduling it for delivery later. And they tend to respond really well to it. The other thing that I didn't expect when I started doing this assignment is that I can see over the course of many semesters for the same class, what concerns students are consistently happening. So we've gone over the syllabus, we've introduced what are the major assignments and how class is going to work. And like in one of my classes, they're excited, but they're also nervous about reading a whole book. That worries me because like, how are we scared about reading a book, students? But that gives you some information that's helpful to students. And then at the end of the semester, when I ask them to reflect, I can make some comparisons between what was I nervous about, what did I have questions about, and what do I feel good about at the end. So it's given me some data to work with, as well as having the more immediate purpose of getting students to have a one-on-one connection with me via email and practice those email skills. And then they just get like 2 points where it's super easy to grade.
So, Rebecca, there's so much that I loved about your answer. I won't be able to kind of hit all the points, but throughout, there's just such a theme of student focus and kind of what you're talking about, that your students are heard, that you took both their personal and their professional lives and goals and aspirations and all of that very seriously, and that you made those noteworthy for them. I absolutely appreciate that. And I think this is something, my reading of the literature and the sort of work that I've done, students have that experience sometimes, right? They don't have that all the time. So I think kind of focusing on that personal experience, that connection with them, that is fantastic. And that's something your students will remember. So that's awesome. And I absolutely appreciate you sharing that. I'm going to put you on the spot here for a second though, too, because one of the announcements I forgot to make at the beginning of this, so I have it as a note to make at the end, is you have a couple of really cool groups you wanted to put on our radar. So I wondered if you wanted to take a second
Sure.
to share with
I,
us both
I
about
absolutely
Purple
will.
Ink and the Writers Forest Group.
Thank
So
you.
yeah,
Thanks. Not entirely related to teaching, but can be, especially if you do
sure.
sort of work. I'm like I mentioned, I'm on the Salina campus. We have a daily writers group that meets for 1 hour a day. And if you've been part of writing groups before, it's probably not what you've done before. We just sit quietly and we write. We use what's called body doubling. If you know much about ADHD or time management strategies, it is just a friendly place to work. Like I set myself up as if I'm in a cafe and like I got my, so it's kind of putting myself in mental space, and then we work quietly next to each other. We say hi to our friends, but you're not reading anybody else's work. You're not sharing your work. You're not giving feedback. So there's not much of a commitment other than for 1 hour a day, I want to show up. Sometimes we do it in person in Salina if everybody is in person. But when we have folks who aren't in person, then we are online. So, and that is not a hard thing for us. So if we love to have folks from Manhattan join us, we haven't decided the time for this semester, but if you want to join, let me know. And then we'll choose a time that works for as many of us as possible. And it's very low stakes, but friendly. Then the other thing we're doing this semester for the first time is we're using the Forest app, which is an app or an extension on your browser that you can add. And it's a focus app. And it is for those, if you were like a kid who loves sticker charts or like Girl Scout badges, this is for you. You plant a little digital tree while you're focused in doing your work, your little tree grows. If you get off task, your little tree starts to die. And that is very stressful for some of us. And we can work asynchronously together to grow a forest. So when you have your team of forest writers, you're working together to keep your trees alive. It also reminds me of those like home ec experiments. If you ever had to like take care of a flour sack and make sure your flour sack or your egg baby didn't crack, it's kind of like that, or a Tamagotchi for productivity. And so we're going to do that this semester. And again, you just say you'd like to be part of it. We'll sign you up. And then at the end of it, there's an option for us to actually, the company actually does some good actual work in the real world of planting real trees. So it has a feel good part of it too. So if you're interested in either of those things, it is for writing though. It is not for checking your email. It is not for grading. It is for writing because that's what for most of us is the hardest part of our job to take out time to do. So we'd love to have you.
Rebecca, I love that. And actually now my daughter has been using, I guess, this app for a really long time. And when she goes to study, she'll say she's going to plant her tree. And I never really kind of knew what that meant. And I think now you've uncovered that for me.
Good. Good. I'm glad for the extra endorsement of a student. Good.
Absolutely. And for those, and you don't need extra endorsement, but my daughter's been doing this for a couple of years and it really helps her. She'll be like, I'm going to go plant my tree for 25 minutes before dinner. So it's fun.
Rebecca, would you like people just to email you if they're interested in those? I can put your email up in the
That would be
chat.
perfect. Thank you. Yeah, and I see some messages already of folks saying yes, please. So I will add if you add email me or tag me here. That's just great.
Perfect.
So yes, I see your hand.
Hi, Rebecca. This is B. I love hearing your successful story, and I have a question about this. I want to repeat your success, and I just don't know why. I provide my an anonymous survey link for my students and welcome them to provide whatever feedback they have or whatever concerns they want to share about the class with me, and it can be done anytime throughout the semester. That's what I told them yesterday in the first class. And of course, it's when they pass and I haven't received anything, which is not surprising, but I'm just so surprised to hear your success. You have gained so much input from your students, and I wonder what approach you use to have all this great interaction with your students.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for the question. I think making it mandatory, they get points for it. I think
Okay.
that is it. Otherwise, I think my highly successful students were like, I don't need to do that. And my students who really actually need to do it are the ones who are least likely to do it. So putting points behind it and doing it right on the first day when they don't have other homework and where everybody is hopeful about school right now, right? Like you just made your New Year's resolution, you got your new haircut, like you feel like now is a time to strike for that kind of assignment before they start to feel like it's out of control. It doesn't matter if I do this or not. I can't recover anyway. So kind of leveraging that hopefulness, but I think it has good outcomes, but it doesn't work if there's not a grade.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. I love your approach.
Thanks. Thank you.
And I think what you did there too, Rebecca, is you actually created an assignment your students will see the value and want to do. And it's okay to do that. It's okay to have assignments that students enjoy and value. And if they can be related to the content, even better. So I really appreciate what you're doing, and thank you for sharing that.
Thanks.
Is anyone else doing anything this semester they're really super excited about? Maybe something new in their classes?
Well, it's not new for me, but it's new for my class. I'm using oral examination for my class. It's a 500 level undergraduate course. So it's more relatively small. The cap is only 20 students. I have used oral examination for my undergraduate courses before, and it works very well. But it's the first time I use it at K-State, and I asked my class yesterday who has done an oral examination, and only one hand up. Which is not surprising, but I explained why I do this, and it seems the class okay, and I would give them a practice before the first real exam. So I will keep you posted how it works, but it worked very, very well for me in the previous experience. And I actually have a research project coming up on evaluating how oral examination can be helpful for us for undergraduate teaching. Anyway, I just want to update that.
That sounds, I would love if you kept us aware of that. And I'm going to kind of take this opportunity to make another pitch that we have a SOTO showcase at the end of our semester. So the SOTO showcase, typically the Monday of finals week, that afternoon is about a half day showcase. And what we do is we share ideas like this. So one of the things that I could see is if you were to submit a presentation, for instance, on how that went, how you did it, how it went, and maybe we won't have all the data at that point. But that is something that would be awesome to share in that space. And for the rest of you who engage in research related to teaching and learning, it's a great space to kind of share that out there. It's a really nice event. It's, a lot of energy around teaching. Get to see a lot of the colleagues that are doing really cool things on our campuses, not just the Manhattan campus, but all of our campuses. And I would love to hear how that goes. So thank you for sharing that. That's, you immediately say oral presentation. I love giving oral presentations, but I know that 75% of my students do not, right? So I'll be very curious to hear how you kind of mitigate those anxieties and challenges and support your students through that.
That's great, and I love to hear the showcase events. It sounds great. It will be a very nice communication among colleagues who are also interested in teaching. So I would love to be involved. Do you have a link or some more
Jeff, if you could
information
drop
later
the
on?
link from, so the link he'll put up is probably going to tell you about last year's, because we haven't gotten it, all the set up for this year because it is in May. But the one from last year will give you kind of an idea what the flavor of that is. And for those of you who have been before, there's a bunch of oral presentations and then a poster presentation section at the end. We normally reserve a room in Hale Library for it. And it's a really cool thing that we kind of do and come together in those moments. And we try to keep the presentations kind of short. All the presenters always tell us, I wish I had more time. We do it a little bit more of a blitz format, 8 or 10 minutes, so we can get a lot of voices heard. Anything else that people are excited about this semester that they're doing in the classes? Andy, I see you unmuted.
I did. I'm really excited. I'm teaching this semester a TEFL practicum course. And as part of that course, I'm having my students keep a teaching journal each week. And I am going to keep a teaching journal along with them. I found just a phenomenal article about reflective practices in teaching English as a second language. And that breaks down like 5 different types of reflection ways that we can reflect as teachers. And so I have those 5 different ways to reflect, and that each week I'm encouraging my students to pick one of those ways to reflect and engage in different questions. And some of them are like images or video clips that they can watch and then kind of respond to, like what is their gut reaction to it, and then kind of explore that. And so I'm really excited. We're reading this article for class for tomorrow. We're going to discuss it, and then we're going to start in on our weekly journals. And it's just been a while since I've kind of paid attention to my teaching in that way. I used to keep a teaching journal, and I haven't really been doing that a whole lot recently. So I'm very excited to get back to it, and I'm looking forward to what we explore together.
That is awesome. I think that my experiences with journaling is it's super, super useful, but it takes time. And time is often in short supply. And sometimes I miss the moment when I could have recorded the thought or the experience. So I'll be super interested in hearing that. And again, that might be something we have in that Soto showcase to kind of
I'm not
bring
gonna
out for
lie, I
people.
was thinking this is something, depending how this goes, that maybe the class will do a submit a SOTL showcase presentation.
I would love that. So we got a couple presentations already from our conversation here today, and hopefully we'll get a whole bunch more throughout the rest of this semester. Um, I'm gonna switch gears because I'm curious a little bit, and I have one that I'll share too. But does anyone have a favorite T-Val comment from the fall semester? Because one of the things the T-Vals were made available, and if you celebrate Christmas, it came out Christmas morning. My family does. There was no way I was opening my T-Vals on Christmas morning. So I actually waited till after New Year's. So I get back in the office to kind of get into those T-Vals so I can get kind of in the headspace to take that as feedback and information to help me get ready for the semester. And I got a lot of comments that made me think, but my favorite one, and I'll tell you why it was my favorite in a second, was it was a student took my general psychology course. And the general psychology course is a course a lot of people take because it solves that social sciences requirement. And only about 5% of those students actually go on to be psych majors or minors. So it's very much a service class for the university, much less a training psychologist class. And the student's comment was kind of short. They were kind of described my class in this way. They said, didn't want to take it, had to take it, loved it. And I really appreciated the sentiment of that comment because getting ready for the spring semester is like on that first day, some students don't want to be there, right? Some students are there for very extrinsic reasons. Someone made them be there, an advisor told them they had to do it, whatever. But it gives us the opportunity to bring them around. And kind of gearing my first days, I was kind of thinking, all right, I'm going to come in. Some of these students aren't going to be buying what I'm selling. So what I'm going to try to do is convince everyone of the value of this class. And I'm going to take that on as a challenge every day. So I really love that comment because it inspired me to see that there's opportunity, even when I get maybe some grumpy faces on that first day, there's some opportunity for kind of change over that course of the semester and bring them around to the value of my course. So I really like that. I like that more than the one that says, "Oh, it's my favorite class ever," because it had an action component that I could kind of pull from that. So I don't know if anyone else wanted to share kind of a comment that they found that they liked and tell me why you liked it, how you might use it kind of going forward. And my preference is to keep these positive rather than those comments that we'd rather not talk about and the ones that keep us up at 3 in the morning.
Well, I can say I noticed a pattern. So one of my hats at this university is working in the coordinating our Spanish program. And so I see all the TVALs for our graduate student instructors that are teaching in our program. And I was really heartened this past semester because I saw a pattern of comments that was, I felt like I could make mistakes and that I wasn't penalized for them. And it grew my confidence so much. And I was just thrilled. It was so exciting to see that, to have students really be excited that like, oh, like I'm learning, I'm making mistakes. And like, I was just stunned at how many students said confidence and making mistakes. And I think that we as educators, so often it's like, you can't make mistakes because if they make mistakes, then they won't have confidence. Like that these are like diametrically opposed. But I think accepting mistakes is part of the process and having the learning process be messy, I think actually leads to increased confidence. Students are amazed at how much they can do, even if they're not doing it all perfectly. So that was the thing that I was very heartened about.
I love that. We had a spotlight event on failure a number of years ago where we kind of done that. And RJ Youngblood, one of our former colleagues, said that the word fail is actually an acronym that stands for first attempt in learning. And that it's a kind of a necessary component of this trial and error piece. And that has kind of stayed with me since I've heard that. But I love that your department has made that kind of a mantra among the GTAs who are doing the teaching in your department. That is awesome, Andy.
Yeah. I had one. Am I on? Am I
You
on?
are on, yes.
Okay.
And
Just want to make
and
sure
just
my audio was on.
and just to promote Dr. Smith before she shares, she'll be next week's presenter. So that when I was telling you about that connection in AJI, Jennifer Smith's going to be our presenter next week. So we talked good things about you early, Jennifer, and now we have a
thank you.
face to go with those accolades. So
Thank you. So my comment is about AI, which is kind of fascinating. I had an AI debacle in my very large psychopathology course, and I really grappled with what to do about it, and decided to come into the classroom and just share my debacle. And there's 110 students in this class, and I openly got fairly emotional because recognizing that the students who were actually doing the work were scoring more poorly than the ones who were actually not doing work according to what the outline was requiring of them. And my comment in the TVAL that the student said was, I didn't do very well on this paper, but Dr. Smith taught me what AI does in the classroom, and I never understood it before. And I was so glad that if that's all they learned from that, I was so glad to know that they recognized that by them cheating and using a source that was not approved for the assignment, they were actually penalizing their classmates who were doing it correctly. And they'd never made that connection. So I was really glad that comment really helped me realize that I think these kids don't truly understand the role that this is playing in the classroom. So
that is fantastic. And I think this is something a lot of us are struggling with, and I'm very excited to hear some more of your thoughts formally about this next week.
thank you.
Yeah. Any other TVAL comments that inspired you to do things this semester?
I'll
Rebecca,
share one. And yeah, I'll share one. You guys can laugh at this. I teach an upper level, 400 level required class that is across majors. So it's both required, but it's not actually in what people want to study. It's a class in professional ethics. So our pilots have to take it, our ADS maintenance people have to take it, our business students have to take it. So it's a nice mix of students, but by the time they get there, they have usually been in their discipline for a while. So most of their day is spent thinking about like flying planes or like fixing planes. And then they have to come to my class. We're talking about ethical dilemmas, and where they're like in their other areas, it's very black and white, right? There's right answers and wrong answers. Right answers, planes fly. Wrong answers, planes crash. In my class, it's ethics. Ooh, it's a lot. So they oftentimes are not attracted to that kind of thinking in the first place. And then they're not disciplined into doing it. And this semester, I had a student report that he had learned an excessive amount in my class. And so, that was like quite a Freudian slip. And he had other positive things to say, but like that excessive, it was like he went to town at a buffet, all you can eat buffet, and it was excessive. But he learned it. So that made me happy.
That is fantastic. I love that. An excessive amount in your class. Maybe that needs to be in the course description. You will learn an excessive amount in Dr. Barrett Fox's class this semester. Excellent. Before I hit y'all with a couple of questions, maybe from my students, are there any other questions, concerns, things that people would like to share, issues they're having, questions they'd like to ask? All right. So in my principal's college teaching class, one of the things I do in that class, and actually many of my other classes too, is I give them the opportunity on the first day to ask me a question. And they can ask me questions about lots of different things. And sometimes they're about me personally, sometimes they're professional. But a number of the questions, probably unsurprisingly, were about teaching. And I said, well, I'm going to talk to a bunch of awesome teachers tomorrow, so I might crowdsource some of the answers with them. So one of the questions, and I kind of gave them my answer already, but one of the questions they had is, how do you get excited to teach a class that you've taught before? Because I know a lot of us, we teach it the first time, it's one thing, teach it the 15th time, it's a little different. So how do you get excited for a class you've taught before? Yes, Jennifer. Oh, you don't have to raise your hand, you can just talk, but yeah, Dr. Smith.
Yeah. So I think that instead of looking at the material, I look at the classroom and the people, and that this iteration of this class is going to be completely different than any iteration I've ever taught before. And that always proves true in the first week. The students are different, their questions are different, their energy is different. It's not the same thing. I don't know how to explain that. It might be the same material. It is not the same environment ever.
Excellent. I appreciate that. Melissa, I see you unmuted.
Yeah, I was going to say something similar. They're different students. And I think we can also make assumptions about our students if we don't really look into what the makeup of them is. So again, I'm teaching an arts and sciences orientation class. I've taught it before. It's usually in the fall. And usually it's first semester freshmen in the class. And I did not think that was going to be the case in the spring. So I looked, I have 25 students, only 10 are freshmen. 7 sophomores, 6 juniors, 2 seniors. I looked at because I have Navigate access so I can see their birth date. So I know I have, let's see, 6 students who are 20 or older as opposed to 18 or 19. Their majors, I also like to look who is first gen. I have 40% of my class first gen. K-State average is about 25%. So really just kind of digging in and looking, and if you don't have this, I have access to a million things in my role, but if you don't have the same access, you can just ask your students and pull them. Mentimeter is great if you want to be able to do it anonymously, but I also think it helps the students understand the makeup of their class too, because I know that coming into an orientation class, my juniors and seniors are older students or students who've been at K-State for most of them have been here for a semester or two actually, but they need to know they are not the only ones in that situation, and that I know that so that I will not treat them like you just started at K-State, because otherwise they might come into the class thinking, I know this stuff, I've been here, I'm not going to get anything out of this. But if they know I know they're not all new, then it really changes the dynamic, and it will be an entirely different class than if it were all first semester freshmen. I mean, I have a couple of new freshmen that start in the spring, but I think really digging in and finding out what makes the class different is really, really useful.
I would
love that.
add on to what both Jennifer and Melissa said, is to add context, right? So every semester when I'm teaching a course that I've taught before, is how does this course speak to the current context now, both at the institution here at K-State and, broader social trends going on. And so I think constantly thinking about like, who are my learners? And then also like, what is the context and how does this connect to the broader context that we're living in helps to keep it feel fresh. And then I'm a serial tinkerer. This is a serious problem that I have. And so whenever I'm teaching a course again, there's always little things that I'm trying out, doing something different, seeing, either a different teaching practice or technique in the classroom, or I add in a couple new, swap out some old articles for new articles. So I think that, finding ways to, explore. I think that part of that is that I like exploring teaching. And so, I'm like, what could I try in this class this time to get something else out of it? Or I feel like recently my students have been struggling with X, Y, or Z. So what could I do to address that in the classroom? Those are the kinds of things that get me excited about teaching a class that I've taught multiple times before.
Nice. So I appreciate that we had a couple themes come out in the answers. So we had the kind of the people theme, right? So we're having similar conversation with different people. That makes it a different conversation. But then we're not actually having the same conversation because we're going to add in context in, and we're going to add tweaks to what we're doing, and the questions we're going to ask will be different and those sorts of things. So we're making it new, and it's already new because we got new people. So I really appreciate that. I told them when I answered the question in class, if I was just reading the same slides to you every semester and I didn't engage you and interact with you, then yes, that would suck. But that's not how I choose to do this either for me or for you. I don't think that's going to maximize our experience together. So the next question I actually struggle with. I've kind of crowdsourced a couple answers on this one already, but what is one teaching practice that is widely recommended, but you personally find ineffective in the classroom?
It's recommended, but you don't find it effective?
Yeah, so basically lots of people do it. A lot of people tell you should do it. Doesn't work for you.
Sorry, I'll chime in here again and
Yeah.
say first day introductions don't work for me. I don't do first day introductions in classrooms. I go right into material because I get a buy-in. And then I do introductions on maybe the third day if I need to do them, if it's a class where that's going to create more of a social connection. But that always just tanks the energy. I don't know why. Maybe I do it wrong.
I have found that sometimes if you're doing like the same icebreaker they've had in 4 classes already that day, it's a little hard to kind of get them. So I understand that sentiment. Other things that people tell you should do it, but just kind of doesn't work for you.
This is the first time I've done this. I'm kind of going off something Jennifer said.
Yeah.
I didn't call roll today. I sent around a sign-in sheet and I did not try to learn the students' names. I almost always do, but I thought it's really more important for this class that they know each other, and I'll learn their names. I'll start that next week and I'll figure out who they are. But there was just other priorities. And so I rarely do that. I usually try to learn about half their names in the beginning, and I learned 2 students' names who came up to me after class, and that's it. I do think it's important to learn, but I just kind of threw it out for the first day.
I mean, there's a logistical argument to be made. At least wait till ad drop is over, right? Before you invest too much time on some of those. All right, excellent. Yes.
For me, I keep hearing students say the first day is the syllabus day. So I assume many people will go through the syllabus in the first class, but I stopped doing that. I really want my students read the syllabus before I go through it, and I'm afraid if I go through the syllabus and talk about it in the first lecture, then they will do think, oh, it's done, and they will never go back to the document and read all the details. And I don't think I necessarily need to go through all the details by myself. They can read and learn a lot. And my approach right now is just to assign the syllabus to them in the first lecture, and then maybe come back in a second, and I ask them what questions they have, and then I can go through some very important details I want to emphasize. That's it. So I don't know. It seems I guess that's quite similar, quite different from many other people do.
I think that's interesting. I haven't heard people talk about that, but I do have a huge issue with the first day only being syllabus day. because then I think you can read, right? So I think if you go, like, I do go through the syllabus, but I go through it trying to inspire them about the things we're going to learn together, to inspire them, give them tips for success and those kinds of things. So I do talk about the syllabus, but it's definitely not the only thing we do. Um, I've had some students say, "Oh, it's just syllabus week." Like, "Oh, it is absolutely not just syllabus week." That's not what we do. Um, but I do think kind of emphasizing the other things about your class. And I think Jennifer was kind of talking about jumping right into content there too, right? So I think that is something that is really cool way to kind of hook your students on what it is they're doing. Any other things that a lot of people do and you're just not so sure about? Andy.
I was trying to think. I was like, I can't think of anything. And then I realized the thing, and everyone who knows me should know that it's grading. Um, yes, I think a lot of people say that, for students to get something done or for student that grades reflect learning, you have to show them where they're at, and that's just not something that I do or buy into. So,
And if you look in the archives of our thing, and maybe Jeff can find it in a second, we have a recording of Dr. Faber talking about ungrading. Also, I think did it at Soto Showcase one year as well. So
yeah,
really kind of,
I have an article that recently came out on it. So,
if you have that available, drop in the chat. We'd be happy to share that out there too. So one of the things that I really liked about this question and this conversation is there's a lot of ways that teaching can look, and there's a lot of different ways to be excellent, right? We're not trying to be cookie cutter. I do think there are things that excellent teachers do. I think they teach inclusively. I think they value their students. I think they try to engage. I think they use active learning. I think there's something that excellent teachers do, but the manifestations of those are going to vary as many of us are teaching. So I think it's a really, really cool thing to kind of hear, and this is what I love about the chats. We hear a lot of different perspectives. There's no one right way. And Dr. Faber has dropped that PDF into the chat about her article. So any other kind of comments in regard to this? I know that I saw Jennifer, you put your video up. I don't know if you wanted to say something too. All right. We're amazingly out of time. So I wanna, because we're trying to end these at 50 so that people can get to their 1 o'clock meetings and all of those kinds of things. We're not always great about that. Oh, Melissa has one more question. Go ahead, Melissa.
Oh no, I wanted to hear one more question from your students for
Oh,
people
one
who
more
can't
question for
stick
the students.
around.
All right. So I'll do my final announcements, then I'll do one more question for those of you who can stick around for that. So next week, Dr. Jennifer Smith, who's here on this call right now, is going to be talking about the importance of connection in the age of AI, 12 noon over Zoom. Be here for that one. Watch asynchronous if you can't be. And please, pretty please tell your colleagues about us, right? We kind of been struggling in this post K-State Today world, at least the way that it used to happen, and getting the word out. So please do get the word out about this series. Earn the PD certificate, watch the stuff. Do the post-event survey that just dropped in. Let us know if you have ideas for future sessions and those kind of things. But I really do appreciate all that you're doing, and I appreciate you being here. Last question that I'll kind of put out here. What do you see as the future of teaching in higher ed in the United States? And further, do you think professor jobs are going to continue to exist or are they going away? So we'll end on like a zeitgeist kind of big picture one. What's going to happen to higher ed?
Way
What
to
do we
pull
think?
out the big question,
I
Don.
know, because that one, it's hard not to go pessimistic sometimes, right? But so what do we all think on this?
I'll
there's
share
going
an
to be a
optimist.
shakeup.
Okay, Andy says there's going to be a shakeup, and Rebecca said something optimistic. But Andy, you want to
I'm
talk
going to be
about the shakeup
optimistic.
before we go optimistic?
Oh, I'll let Rebecca go.
No,
All
no,
right,
no, because you go ahead, Andy.
Nope. I was just gonna say there's gonna be a shakeup. I don't know what it's gonna be, but it's gonna be a big shakeup.
I am optimistic that there's some concern in this, that I think the human parts to this that we bring are irreplaceable. But I think so that will become a premium service. So I have concerns about accessibility to good teaching as more crummy teaching, I'm talking about AI, becomes available to people who can't afford good teaching. So I'm optimistic that good teaching will continue to be valued, but I'm concerned that it'll be harder for people to get.
So to kind of piggyback on that, and I'm dropping a link to a faculty focus piece that I wrote about this I think in the spring semester last year, is I had a student come out of my office, and it was a student who had used ChatGPT for an assignment, and I'd called the student on it, we'd work through that process and whatever. So not the student I was expecting to just stop by and chat, right? But he did. He saw my door was open. He came in. He sat down and chatted, and he started his kind of conversation. He said, "Hey, as you know, I'm a fan of AI." And I thought that was kind of a funny way to start this conversation. He says, "As you know, I'm a fan of AI." And I said, "Yeah, we've discovered that." He said, "So what do you think your role as a professor is going to be? Because I don't need you to learn content anymore." And I was kind of dismayed. I was like, "What is happening? What is happening?" I was like, "Well, we don't know what AI is going to do." And I kind of stammered out some response, but in reality, I was so kind of stressed in that moment that I had really no idea what I even told the student. So I get done that, and he said, "I'm going to tell you what your role is going to be." I was like, "Please do," because I'm kind of floundering. He said, "Your role is to get me to go to class." Like, that's what your role is. Your role is to increase my curiosity, my wonder for the information. Your role is to get me to want to think about the content. It's like, I don't need you to learn content. I got the internet. Before that, we had books. Like, I don't need you to get the information. I need you to get me to want to learn the information. You need to be my facilitator, my motivator to kind of do that. And I've talked to colleagues about this sentiment, and some colleagues, I don't need to do that. I don't need to motivate them, all those kind of things. But I thought this was actually a pretty optimistic thing, that the classroom is the place we get to do the cool stuff, right? So it's not the place where I necessarily have to read definitions to my students, but it's where we can kind of deepen the context of what that means. So Andy was talking about context before, right? So it's the applications, the content, the higher levels of Bloom's taxonomy, is that's what we get to do, but they don't need us to learn definitions. ChatGPT can do that quite well-ish, right? So I really kind of appreciated that sentiment. And we may get to a point where AI can also motivate and kind of challenge in those ways. I hope we don't immediately, because the people who create AI said its purpose is labor replacement. That's really what it's supposed to do. But I think there's some labor that we do, and I use that word not as a pejorative, but I think there is some labor that we do that our students really do appreciate and need. And that's when I'm going to try to keep leaning into, even as AI kind of emerges around me and kind of flourishes for a lot of these activities. I guess in a sense, I'm going to make my students feel that they need me. And not in an unhealthy dependency way, but it's just that I can do things for them that they want me to do to excite them about learning.
I strongly believe that learning is a social experience. And so that's what we provide in the classroom, is an opportunity to be social, and not just, even when we read a book, the author's speaking to us and we're having that interaction. And if the author is not able to speak to us in a way that we understand, we're not going to get the information.
And what all of this conversation has led me to conclude is that, Melissa, you did your first day right.
Yay, I'm so glad, because I had to look up my T-Belt to find a favorite comment, but one of my students mentioned feeling safe in the classroom, which was great. I think that's a big part of it too. And I made the mistake of engaging on social media on a public post recently, and the content doesn't matter, but I wasn't actually, I just kind of asked a question. And I thought the main difference that we all know between being anonymous and not is that people will treat each other really badly if they don't know each other sometimes, through public social media. But in our classroom, we really also have the opportunity to get students to engage when they disagree, when they're unsure, if they want validation. And so it's a safer place for students to engage in a way that is a lot more productive. And since AI is not a person, and anything you can learn online is not going to be somebody you really have a relationship with, unless that's an additional piece of it. It's also really just kind of from an optimistic stance. It's a really good way for us to have students to engage when they disagree and question, but they like each other, or they at least respect each other, even if they're like, you're my classmate, I'm going to be nice to you, I may not be your friend. And I love that idea, Don, that you're talking about inspiring. I will say I kind of had a visceral reaction to that, not knowing the student you talked to. Whoa, it's my job to make you curious. You're supposed to bring some curiosity to the
Yeah.
table. But I'm curious kind of how that balance strikes out between, what
And
the
I'll say
student's
me
responsibility
conveying
is.
that conversation might be different than how is I didn't feel challenged in the moment when he said that. I felt inspired and connected and all of those kind of things. And the student and I knew each other at that point, right? So it's very different than if a student just walks in and says, "This is what you need to be doing for me." That wasn't how this went down.
Oh, 100%. I'm glad that was the case too.
All right, so we are past time, and I appreciate all of you staying on for a very invigorating chat. Again, Siri's going to meet next Wednesday at noon, and until now and then, I hope you have wonderful classes. I hope you have wonderful experiences, and I want to thank you for all that you do at this university and beyond. I think there's far too little gratitude in higher education sometimes, but you're seen. I appreciate you. I understand many of the things. I know lots of you and all the things you're doing behind the scenes, and those of you who don't know as well, I know you're doing just as much. So I thank you for everything that you're doing, and I hope you have a splendid week.